This is such a great bolt action rifle. And back about 4 years ago here in the Nutnfancy project, I had the bright idea that I would be reviewing many of the great combat weapons of World War II, maybe a couple of World War I. This is, of course, 1917 Enfield. It's an Eddystone. The gun actually kind of found me. I didn't find it. And I had reviewed the Muzzle a couple years prior here in TMP, and I said, man, I need to review this gun, that gun, and this was one of the guns on the list that eventually I would want to review here in TMP. Things have changed. It's not quite the same as it used to be. I'll explain here in a sec. Walking through a gun store, getting some other stuff for the project, swung by the used rifle rack. Here sits this gun. And no one was looking at it. I mean, it was like invisible. I couldn't believe my luck. And the price was amazing. It's gone way up in value at this point. The 1917, the 03s have as well. And I mean, it wasn't even a thought. It's like, buy it, we'll review it. And actually, a lot of the targets I'm going to show you on this 1917 are dated back in 2012. We did the lion's share of our shooting back then. Well, what's taking you so long, Nutton? And are you still going to do that with a grand scheme? I know what you guys are saying. The answer is probably not, because the audience interest really isn't there. And that's represented in the amount the audience will come in and participate in the video, watch the video. They'd much rather see tactical guns, not so much World War II guns. You know, I'll check back with this video in 2 months, and we'll see if this one proves me wrong, but I doubt it will. And that's why that this has had to been put on the back burner for more pressing projects for my audience and what they're interested in. It's usually a common interest, and I like it too, but I love this stuff as well. It's cool, man. The 1917 is one of the world's great bolt-action rifles. Now, this will not be a history lesson, nor will it be a play-by-play on every variation of component of the 1917, because that bores me, and I think it bores you. Now, I don't try to be like anybody else in my reviews. I'm completely independent, completely original. You guys should know that by now. What I will talk about is a little bit about philosophy of use, about actually shooting it, and what I like about it and what I don't like about the 1917, and perhaps as we end the video, which will be, I think, remarkably short for such a cornerstone bolt-action rifle, how it compares against the competition. That competition being other era bolt-action rifles, the 1917. It was born out of a need in WW1 for a bolt-action gun. The 1903s were in short supply. They looked at the British guns and they said, hey, that P14 could be adapted over here. We could chamber it for a 30-06. We could get the tooling up and running rather quickly, and we could equip what was then a pretty desperate need for small arms to our troops. In fact, 75% of the armed, or the American Expeditionary Force, I think that's what it stood for, the AEF, were armed with this rifle, the 1917s, not the 03s. And from what I understand, my reading, my studies through the years, they loved it. This is a very fond rifle by the troops in the Great War. And I'm actually going to call this a great gun for the Great War in reference to World War I. It was manufactured, like I said, it was in particular manufactured by Eddystone. Winchester made them, Remington made them as well. They didn't see too much service, if any service, if my facts are correct, in World War II, being supplanted by the 1903, of which you'll see a review posting pretty close to this one. Just knocking them out, getting them done, getting them out there. Eddystone by far is the most predominantly produced. 1917, again chambered in 30-06. They made almost 1.2 million of them, and I'm lucky to have one. Very cool. Which kind of, asks the question, what if I really love this gun nut, and how do I get one? I think they're still out there. You go to the gun auction sites and perhaps find one, watch for estate sales, and do like I do, just scour gun shops, and you may see one pop up. what you will have to decide is, do you want this one or perhaps an 03, which I think might be a little bit more expensive now. So if you wanted to buy a Springfield 1903, it's going to be more pricey. But I would not hesitate for a second getting a 1917, and this will get us into our philosophy of use discussion. If you just enjoy the history and the character of such a rifle. The barrel on this, for instance, is marked 1118. So that is a lot of history right there. 1118. Now I could go again component by component on this, and perhaps there's something non-original on these that was either replaced at the arsenal level or perhaps through several users who own this gun prior to myself. Hard to say. Don't know. I still love it, and it looks great, and it looks period correct to me, getting to the philosophy of use of obviously collectability. You just enjoy possessing it. I don't think guys who own 1917s are actually, I would say, really nice examples of 1903s, and for that matter, K98s, which, by the way, one happens to be right here, since it will come into the 1903 review. I don't think people shoot them a lot. You know, this is a repro sling, by the way. I think what they do is collect them. Just enjoy them. So that's a philosophy of use, is just collectability, with maybe an occasional outing to go shoot it. And I'll tell you this, into another philosophy of use, shooting it is really fun. It's a big, heavy gun, about 9.5 pounds without the sling. This one I put on the scale with this sling, which came with the gun, and I haven't ever taken it off. Looks like a 1917 sling. 10 pounds 4 ounces, so it is no lightweight. It's a big gun. But it was designed from the outset not really to handle the 30-06, but the British 303, and it was, of course, adapted. So it has a very strong action. It has been used to make some Wildcat sporter guns, I think in the 50s, 60s. A lot of people would get 1917s and adapt it accordingly, which is cool. Remington actually had a sporterized version of this gun. It was called the Remington Model 30. It was based on the M1917. And they made some changes to the gun. You can look that one up if you're interested. I don't think they made too many of those Model 30s. Kind of interesting footnote in history, though. As far as the WROL gun, no. It's just too heavy. I mean, there's too many other options. Home defense, no. I do think, talking philosophy of use still very quickly, I think hunting with it would be really fun. If you show up into the deer camp or the elk camp and you're carrying a very heavy, by the way, like I said, 1917, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's cool. You know, you might have to do, depending on your laws, you can only have so many rounds. This is actually a 5+1. You might have to figure out a way to block it off. That's all I'll say about philosophy of use. I think you guys pretty much get it. SAWC, as you can tell, is very period appropriate. So as we transition out of the 19th century into the 20th century, this is kind of the gun that was cutting edge back then, because it used a smokeless powder, self-contained cartridge, and newer for the time, I wouldn't say completely new, magazine fed, so it was actually a pretty quick firing gun in that era. Machine guns, of course, not being counted in that assumption. It represents the thinking of the day as well. That's why it has so much charm. I'm going to start, though, if we talk about all the specifics of the 1917, there's a couple things that I don't dig as much if I go against other period bolt-action rifles. And I'll start here. One is the sights. I'm not a super fan of the 1917 sights. I'm going to write the manufacturer and have them change it immediately. I'm totally joking, of course. No, I don't like that there's no windage adjustment on this thing. Well, there is. I'll tell you here in a sec. But, I mean, there's nothing in this huge leaf-protected rear sight with a volley fire-capable ladder on it right here that there's no windage? What? And it's not this. This is just, these are attachment screws. Crazy. The way you'll do windage on a 1917 is drifting the front blade, which is screwed up. I'm saying doing it that way. On a rifle that is so exquisite as this, I just find it extremely surprising, and such an omission, they don't have a windage adjustment easily. Again, it's kind of in that transition period of when they're changing rifles, so I kind of get it. I think the P14's the same way. I haven't held those, I haven't shot them, but I've checked them out. That's the first thing about the sights that irritate me. And the other one is pretty common to all these guns. They shoot really, really high at 100 yards. Now, I already know what you're going to say. I've heard it all before. Oh, but they were battle sighted at 300 meters, 400 meters, and that's what they shot back then. I don't buy that at all. I never have. I don't think even back then, knowing what I know now about rifle combat, that makes much sense. Most of the shots, even back then, I think, would come within 100 yards. Well, maybe not the Great War, because trench warfare was predominant then. So I could see maybe longer range shooting. I just don't understand why they wouldn't go 100 yards. Here I go on my soapbox. But it just irritates me. 100 yards, and let's adjust from there. Just like we do in the modern era. I just don't know why they didn't get it. So this will shoot approximately, this particular sample, about 3 feet high at 100 yards. Maybe 2.5 feet. I don't exactly remember. But it's really high. I actually looked for a way to put a higher front sight on it, short of milling my own, or getting one and modifying it for that pretty much proprietary dovetail on the 1917. I just left the original one on. And I don't know if that's the original blade. Someone may have replaced it. It might be, I don't know, Numrick or whatever, whoever makes the replacement parts for that. I don't know. And here's what I do, and I was able to shoot on at 100, and you'll see it on the targets, is I have tried it through here, and again, this diopter back here on the 1917, I like the sight picture. I think it's fine, although the short blade up front is a little bit strange because you have kind of a squashed sight picture on the 1917 in my way of thinking. I don't mind the ears, those are cool, although this whole section, the really heavy receiver on the 1917, is really overbuilt and adds to the gun's bulk and weight. That's why it is so darn heavy. I think this is a lot of the weight. Also, the barrel's relatively thick. So this is not adjustable, this peep right here. So what's that zeroed for? 1917 guys will know, whatever, 300, 400 meters, that's what it's zeroed for. Okay, great. What I found, though, strangely, is if I pop the ladder up with the long range or volley fire leaf sight, whatever you want to call it, and I push it all the way down, that's right on at 100. Hey, it was designed that way. I don't think so, because look at the graduations in the leaf sight, dude. Right? I mean, it's graduated all the way up to whatever. I see 8 on there. I don't have my glasses on, whatever. Long range. So I see a 1,500 meters. Oh my gosh. That is volley fire, by the way. So that would be an area bombardment using rifles, which was common back in the day, and actually, from what I understand, pretty darn effective if you're doing it in mass. So the company commander or whoever, brigade commander, would say, listen, everybody set your sights like this, aim this way, and we're going to lob rounds to fall on the enemy, much like an artillery shell, except it will be small arms fire, fired from a long distance. It is a very valid technique, and it does work. And that's what this was for, from what I understand. And looking through these sights, I can't imagine shooting this at 500 yards at a man-sized target. I did shoot it at 300 yards on an IPSC plate, steel variety, and it was a challenge for me. You know, maybe it's because I suck, but it's a challenge. And I'm out there in the desert shooting, and I'm just scratching my head. I'm going, how did they get this done? Because no one's shooting at me now. I have all kinds of time to shoot, but if you're under pressure, I'm just thinking they missed a lot. I think the gun, as you'll see in accuracy, is inherently accurate, but the iron sights are of medium fineness. Let me remind myself, make sure I'm telling you right. Maybe they're a little bit more precise. Not medium, but they're actually pretty precise because this is a small front sight, just like the regular Enfield. So that's good. Okay, so that's the sights, and you're kind of stuck with them if you go with a 1917. There's not a lot you can do. I'm trying to get this gun in frame. It's such a long gun, I can't do it. You're stuck with them. There's really no front sight options. I looked around, I didn't see any. Maybe I missed them. And there's really not much you can do with the rear sight either. And more importantly, it's such a period collectible, a lot of folks wouldn't want to do it anyhow. You know, like I said, they're just going to store it and maybe shoot occasionally. And you can offset in the peep sight, and the way you would do that is just place that blade in the bottom half or bottom third of the hole. I have done that, and that will get you on at 100. You can do that, but I just think it's an odd sight picture, and I'd prefer not to. There you go. Rant complete on the sights on the 1917. Apparently, it didn't do anything to, you know, adversely affect it with the Doughboys. They loved it. Going from the muzzle back super quick, there's a look at the barrel. I think it was a 5-groove, 26-inch barrel, so it's going to be a couple inches longer than M1903. There's your stacking swivel here. That's really not for a sling. There's a way to attach a bayonet right there. Very cool. I don't have one on the table. Sorry, I forgot to bring it. But it'll, I think, take a M1917. You can get a repro for that. This is machined, not mimed. Walnut stock with a ton of character. I really like the sling that was on it, and it just fits it so perfectly. Is it original? I'm kind of thinking not. I mean, if it, like I said, that barrel's marked, you know, 1918, if I'm correct. I think the sling, the original sling, is long gone. Leather will rot away. But I'll say whoever owned this gun prior to me did a great job taking care of it. I mean, it shows no rust. Really not that much damage at all, other than normal wear and tear. The parkerization is perfect. The smoothness of the bolt, by the way, is a huge plus on the 1917. It is glass smooth, and there's no magazine cutoff, which the 03 has, which you can completely ignore. I don't really care, but it's a smooth bolt right up until you go here, until you close, because I've never heard anyone talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. The 1917 to shoot faster or fast is a little bit more difficult because when you close, you actually have to push, and this is where you're cocking. So they say it's cock on closing. Technically, that's correct, but really you're cocking on the push. So you, unlike a modern bolt gun where I can come down and just slam it down the air, which is my habit pattern, you may see that in the video where I'm kind of flubbing it up because I'm used to that. You got to come up, push forward, and then you go down. And I was going to tell you, there's some irritation of the 17. That's one of them. I mean, I think it's just a little bit annoying. But it's not that big of a deal. And then you can see that's cocked right here. And as you come up, uncock, so it cocks on closing. The bolt handle itself is super cool because it mates into the receiver right here. And it actually functions in this particular adaptation of the Enfield design as a third rear lug. For speed of machining, wartime expediency, they didn't want to machine a rear lug like the Mauser has, so they did it that way. And then, as you can see on this bolt here, it is very Mauser-like with the 2 lugs, non-rotating extractor. I wonder how many rounds this thing has seen. I really do. It doesn't look like it's been fired that much. It's another one of those cases of if guns could talk, right? We'd love to know where this gun's been. Had it seen combat? I would love to know. This, by the way, is from me shooting it. I mean, the brass markings on the side of the receiver, that's me. So I just wondered, you know, what guys did who owned it before me. Here's your rotating safety, and it's probably the best of the bunch. And I'm talking Mosin Nagant, probably the Swiss rifles, the 1903, the Mausers. I much prefer this one on the M1917. It's very ergonomic, works perfectly, very durable. It's serrated. There you go. Oh, the trigger. We got to talk about that super quick. So here's my trigger scale. I normally don't fire these old rifles, dry fire I mean, but for the tabletop I will. Relax, it won't hurt at one time. Let's see. I always have to push this thing like 20 times to get it ready. 3 pounds 6 ounces, y'all. Oh my gosh, what a sweet trigger it has. It's just a beautiful trigger. This is all machine steel, by the way, and it actually has kind of the 1903 style of stock, not the C model stock, but you know, kind of the prior to the pistol grip. A lot of character in this wood. There's a steel butt plate right there with a trap door for a cleaning kit if you so desire, and that's your feature by feature review. You could strip or clip the 1917. The firepower we've discussed already. It's 5+1, which again for the day was pretty good. Pretty good. Right up until guns like the Garand started coming out, this was considered a very viable combat infantry weapon. Firepower, excellent. Track record is superb. The troops loved it. I have not ever discovered anything that said they had problems with it, reliability problems. In our shooting, even this very old example is extremely reliable. No failures of any kind. Very smooth action, as long as you get ready for that cock-on closing thing I talked about. Once upon a time, they did have a leaf spring under the ejector, and I think that in later manufacturing was replaced with a spring, a coil spring. But I didn't take mine apart to see which one it was because I wasn't interested. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Nice cartouche on that stock, by the way. Doodle's the one that really knows the history of all these older guns that kind of come through our hands, and he'll keep tabs on it. He'll do the research, go, yeah, it came out of here. With the Garands, he's like the expert on that, not me. Accuracy of the 1917. Sometimes with these older bolt-action rifles, guys will go on, and I've read the comments online, they'll say, yeah, it's a 1-inch rifle at 100 yards. I think that could be the case if you shot really good ammunition and you had a scope. But with iron sights, I did not see that to be the case either with this gun or the 03. I'm thinking more like 3 to 4 inch groups at 100 yards. Keeping it real. Here's back in 2012, May variety, shooting Greek HXP produced in 1977. First shots. That's at 50 yards. Here's 100 yards. 1917, shooting the same ammo back in 2012. And that's what I'm telling you, about 3 to 4 inches. So this may have been a flyer or sighting it in, trying to offset for the weird sights. I honestly forget. Another group with the 1917. I'm going to go fast on these. Boom. Same type of group. That's really good accuracy, though. Is it better or worse than other period rifles? I would say it's better. With an iron sight and Mosin, myself, I'd be extremely hard-pressed to do this. Yeah. That's a great group, by the way, actually. Here's 150 grains soft point out of the Eddystone. This is Tactical Doodle. I'm sorry, this is 50 yards if I didn't say that correctly. There you go. 50 yards, 50 yards. Boom. One more. His point of aim was right here, I guess, that particular day. 50 yards. And that's Greek HXP. And then I think I have another one. Nope, that's it. So accuracy, I got some 03 targets. I'll show you in another review. I'll say accuracy is good to excellent. I did not produce any 1 or 2 inch groups with this, though. With the ammunition we tried at 100 yards. I just couldn't do it. And I'm going to show you some more recent footage this year shot at, I don't know. I think it's inherently accurate, but the sights and sight management might be a thing. You may see some other 1917 owners show up and they're getting that style of accuracy or that level of accuracy. I just don't know. Field strip, I already showed you that. That's pretty simple. Accessories, I wouldn't change a thing about it. Think twice before you swap anything out on these older guns. And although I said 1 point or almost 1.2 million were produced, I'm really not sure how many are in circulation in the United States. It's not a gun you see that frequently. I've been into guns for 3 decades and I don't remember seeing a ton of 1917s on the shelf. But then again, I don't know a lot of times if I was looking and I may have missed them. But I would recommend probably just leaving it as is. If something breaks, you could go to Numrich, however they pronounce that, gun parts place, and you can get replacement parts, albeit they will be made in China or Korea probably. Sometimes the quality is high, sometimes not so much. You might want to get a bayonet just for display and to make it look cooler. Just a thought. Yeah, I talked about the sights already. Didn't see anything out there. Options. What would you get versus the 1917 versus the 1903 Nutnfancy? I would get the 1903 if given a choice. Yeah, and that's not by like a hands down win. It's like, oh, the 1903 is so much better. But I honestly think, and I'll say this in this review, which will be right after this video, that the 1903 is the best bolt-action rifle of World War II. One of the best of all time, in my opinion. That's how I feel about the M1903. It is just perfect. It combines all the best attributes of the Mauser design with American design elements, which I think is a big win. This one I think will be more expensive than that one, but I wouldn't hesitate. If you're just going to get a fun gun that has character, that World War II appeal, go with the 1917, dude. It's fun. This is not a gun that you're going to be packing around and backpacking with, right? So weight really isn't a consideration in my book. I'm really not even mentioning it other than just for design elements. You could look at other ones like the K98. I showed you that one. The Swedish 41B 2447. This is a Stava I just love. It's such a great gun. M48. You get a Japanese Arasaka. But one thing I love about these guns is they have that common caliber of 30-06, which is a powerful, all-around, great cartridge, still available in bulk in the United States, which is a huge plus. So I can go out and actually, to this day, buy 200 rounds of 30-06 ball, no problem. Maybe I want tracer, I can find it. Maybe I want some other specialty rounds, like hunting rounds, I can find it. You go with the Arasaka, you know, like a Type 99, which is in a 7.7mm caliber, you're not going to be shooting that much. It's just too expensive. Great gun, cool, a lot of history, but no. Mosins are probably still up there for shootability because of cost effectiveness, but they nowhere approach the, honestly, the mystique and the romanticism of the 1917, and for that matter the 03 as well. In my opinion, they don't. They're just very crude, and Russian weaponry compared to Allied weaponry has always been that way. If you were to go look, for instance, at an F-22 versus an Su-27, and you walked around those aircraft, to this day, you would see a difference. And that difference is like looking at a 1903 or a 1917 versus a Mosin Nagant. Being 21 years in the military, I know what I'm talking about. Allied weaponry is high-end. High-end. Usually really excellent. We have a couple misses under our belts, for sure. Doesn't mean I don't like the Mosin. The Mosin's cool, and I've done a ton of videos on the Mosin long before I ever got to this one. That should be obvious. Then you could go with maybe a SMLE if you wanted, but that's a 303 caliber, kind of that weird caliber thing. The 1917 therefore remains a complete win. Other than the quirks I talked about, the sights, it's a quirk, cock on closing a quirk, but I can totally deal with them. Smooth, accurate, a lot of history, a lot of character. Highly recommended if you want to own a super cool, actually World War I era gun. That's what this one is, World War I era. It served in the Home Guard. We actually shipped some back to Britain on the Lend-Lease program, which was cool. And we probably never saw those guns again. That's the 1917 review. See you later.